Okay, this is the another blog that I did in relation to my wrongful termination from the Institute for Capacity Development at the IMF. The blog was in 2015. This was after altercations with Adrian Thapa, the newly appointed office manager. You know, another example of how the IMF and everywhere else is just promoting the most incompetent, brown-nosing idiots that won't rock the boat, that'll keep on towing the line. And this is why, the IMF, the rhetoric, all this progressive rhetoric that Christine Lagarde brought in, you saw it over at the UN, with Michelle Bachelet. They just bring in, progressive rhetoric, but the subversive activity of all of the different minorities vying for their, to make them the new dominating group within the social structure. Of course, it's in the United States. You see it, really, mainly it's between the Muslims, the Latinos, the African Americans, the Muslims, and the whites, and the American Indians, which are probably the minority. I'm not sure what their population is, but everybody, nobody is working towards upholding the U.S. Constitution or Bill of Rights or democratic principles or any of that. The left, the international community, and all over the world has sold out, just following the lead of the Americans since the 80s. And this, you can't blame it all on Cornelia Guest. Of course, Cornelia was a high school dropout, but she was the lead cheerleader of the left. I was definitely the progressive left. I was a backlash to my mom's extreme right ideologies and political efforts. Not through my dad, so they were never really kind of effective, but what she did was do everything to destroy, my political ambitions in the 80s, and then since I've been back, it's something that I search my soul all of the time to forgive my mother for. It's how she hung me out to dry. Her good friend Mike Helen was the campaign manager for John McCain in 2000, for his 2008 bid. All he had to do was pick up the phone and call the consulate, and I would have had a consular representative on top of the whole thing, and nobody would have dared screw with me. That's all I'd asked, and that's basically the court watches that all of the NGOs are doing. I did the one court watch for Aaron Eddy in 2016. That would probably been March. And, it's like, one is more than enough. Because when it's your own court case, I saw the crap they were pulling. But of course, when it's your own court case and you got, he's trying to kill you, you're, scared to death for your children. It wasn't even my life. I went and got a life insurance policy with the little money I had, and I was like, well, there's something, because I didn't know what was there. He's losing it anyway. Goes into old stories, but believe me, it's to try and keep a cool head when everything is going on, collapsing around you. It's not easy. And so, of course, when you have somebody else doing the court watch who's not emotionally in the middle of the battle, it's you have a more you can see things right that maybe you can't see once you're inside. See, this is the thing. It's good to have observers from outside who are not in the cesspool, who can tell you, give you a different perspective. But of course, that's not what anybody in Washington wants. That's not what anybody in the international development community wants. So it's not happening. So, here, bullying in the workplace and its consequences. This was, 2015 spring, so this is about a year before I filed the report, Workplace Bullying in the IMF, with IMF HR, Mark Planton, Kalpana Kochar, and Ombudsman Ethics Committee. So, bullying in the workplace and its consequences. The internet is full of advice on how to be successful in the workplace, how to develop one's social skills, what to say, what to do, what to wear, what not to say, what not to wear. All of this advice focuses on what the employee needs to do to adapt to his or her workplace. What all of this rhetoric fails to recognize or acknowledge is to what extent the environment of the workplace affects one's efforts, productivity, and career, as well as the productivity of the organization as a whole. The 1970s and 80s were characterized by combating sexual harassment in the workplace, with the popular TV show Mad Men bringing home to us the elevated sexism and alcoholism that permeated the business world of the 50s and 60s. But now, after a few decades of high-profile, million-dollar lawsuits by high-priced lawyers, the marketplace is inundated, employers have been forced to take a hard line against sexual harassment. Yeah, right. However, as with all battles involving abuses of power, this issue has evolved over the decades into a broader fight, bullying being the problem du jour. And even sexual harassment, I found in the interim years, because this, of course, was 2015, and before I, just started filing all of this stuff with the sexual harassment, tried to find a lawyer, the lawyer that did Aronetti's, Aronetti's court case, and she was good. Of course, she's not what is needed to really go up against everything. But and when I said, I want to take the IMF to the courts for labor rights violations, and she just looked at me like, "Lady, are you frickin' crazy?" Huh. There's no way you'll win. And see, there's no way I won't win. I mean, I know all of this is going to have to go to the international courts, because the courts at the national level, the Americans and all the others, have so lost it. Not only do we have the problem of the breakdown in the rule of law created by the war on drugs, just as it created with prohibition. We see that's well documented, that the parallels there, which ends in another, financial collapse, and which wasn't going to happen to us. What was I? Sorry, I lost my. The other problem is at the international level, we've got all of these people, who have bought into all of this managerialism, and everybody's got to have a PhD and MBA, and have been in the cesspool of the grappling of the ladder of success for the past 30 years, to have a voice and to have an opinion. And of course, it's all the same cacophony, but, they're all in bed together, and I'll see names. I mean, I think it's the International Court of Justice, this Paloma from Women's Link Worldwide. Well, Women's Link Worldwide needs to be investigated for fraud and for the cover-up of crimes against humanity for refusing, for I don't know how many years now, to challenge the jurisprudence of Gonzalez Carreño versus Spain, CEDAW 2014. I challenge that, and I can assure you, I mean, if people would start arguing these cases, as I've told them, I mean, I think that's one of the things that pissed off my lawyers, apparently, as I was told. In Spain was when I saw they were screwing around and you know, playing games with me. I told them, this is what you gotta do, this is how you gotta argue it. It's not rocket science. These people are freaking crazy. Oh my God. All of you people in the IMF, World Bank, UN, International Development Community, throughout Washington, NGOs, think tanks, the feminists have screwed you to the wall with all of her psychological testing BS. That's gonna come and bite everybody in the ass when we get this into the courts. You gotta start proving that you can have it all and be good mothers and good PhDs and MBAs who know what you're doing, and power-hungry women, and look at the cesspool you produced in you know, workplaces and economies and societies, and the press is just as much out to lunch. Well, let's take a look at your kids, because you're screwing up there. You second you do it all in Anne Marie Slaughter's book on unfinished business, another one of those books. You know, she says, one of the ladies says, oh yeah, well, my kids turned out, you know, fine. That's what everybody hears. Oh, my kids turned out fine. I'm like, if you knew about your kids, because I actually talk to some of these kids and observe what you all are doing. I know I couldn't stand the busybody, you know, the whole Gladys Kravitz from Bewitched. Oh, I've been having a fight with my lawyer, my landlord again. Won't let me clean. I mean, they're just like Trump here. Oh, it doesn't, you know, nobody respects anything. I have to fight to clean the house. It hasn't been cleaned in 10 years. He gets all, I mean, he needs to go to a psychiatric ward. Just like a lot of people in this city, in this country. These two white male supremacists, one, the cokehead, and the heroin addict, has a gun. You know, I'm not going to be, you know, everybody thinks that I'm going to be the sacrificial lamb for all the 10%ers who are sitting around and going to the country clubs and cashing in and all of this, and because that, of course, was the origins of my problems in family courts, of you're a parasite, you know, of living off the hard work of your husband all of these years. Here, give everything to him and throw you out the country. And the reason why that flies and that has traction anywhere is because there are a lot of you out there, you know, the Desperate Housewives things, and the Housewives of Atlanta, or I mean, all of this country is absolutely crazy. Jerry Springer, I came across that in about 2004, 2005. When we moved into the house in Madrid, at night I'd be fixing dinner, and I came across that, and I would go, my kids downstairs, and I said, oh my God, you gotta watch this. This is Mom's country and the crazy people in it. But guess what? Those crazy people exist in other countries as well. And believe me, I'm seeing it everywhere, and it's getting worse and worse and worse and worse. But sexual harassment isn't being Now we're started, this is, the Weinstein case, the Epstein case. So, in order to effectively combat bullying, it is important to understand the dynamics of the situation rather than look for punctual, isolated incidents that may or may not constitute bullying. Bullies and those with abusive personality disorders, wherever they be found, are motivated by their desire to deflect attention away from their inability to handle situations, particularly stressful and crisis situations. They project their frustrations and inability to handle their jobs onto subordinates, while trying to convince superiors, as much as themselves, that the problems lay with the inadequacies or incompetence of others. Large bureaucratic organizations are particularly plagued with these problems and exposed to their consequences, as Daniel Goldman states in Social Intelligence. In rigid hierarchies, bosses tend to be authoritarian. They more freely express contempt for their subordinates, who in turn naturally feel a messy mix of hostility, fear, and insecurities. Insults, which can be routine with such authoritarian managers, serve to reaffirm the boss's power while leaving their subordinates feeling helpless and vulnerable. In a relationship among peers, an affront can be challenged and apology asked for. But when the insult comes from someone who holds all of the power, subordinates, perhaps wisely, suppress their anger, responding with a resigned tolerance. But that very passivity, with the insult going unchallenged, tacitly confers permission to a superior in that vein. As the demeaning messages continue over time, the person holding back feels increasingly powerless, anxious, and ultimately depressed. All of which, if prolonged over long periods, markedly increases the likelihood of cardiovascular diseases. In light of Goldman's observation, it is important for employers to realize that it's not only the victim who suffers. Bullying in the workplace has far-reaching consequences for the productivity and morale of employees throughout the entire organization. When bullying is supported and encouraged by upper management by their failure to act, valuable employees are often lost or demoralized into just punching the clock. With ineffective managers at liberty to continue performing at substandard levels and creating havoc and inertia among coworkers and subordinates. In the business environment of the 21st century, which is increasingly competitive and filled with employees seeking fulfillment and meaningful work, it behooves employers to properly confront the bullies and bullying amongst their ranks. A bully without the support and encouragement of those around him or her quickly loses their nerve and bravado, and the coward within is therefore thereby exposed and vanquished. It's really not rocket science. I mean, one of the things that I always say with ICD is the perfect example of, you have all of these problems that of morale and productivity that all of the bullying is producing, but instead of addressing the problem by getting rid of the bullies, they brought in I think Gina Paoni was UNICEF. I forget, UNICEF or UNESCO, but one of the other international organizations. I mean, see, it's all, everybody's been in bed together, and it's like with Ian Golding, they just keep changing the deck chairs on the Titanic. So, if the legal community doesn't wake up and start bringing lawsuits for labor rights violations, as well as the policies to the upper management. I mean, Jennifer Shadak one day when I mean, this is years after Trump got in, but it was maybe a year ago or so. Oh no, it was around the time that I wrote the letter to Sharmini Curry, or no, it was the new director of ICD, because Jennifer Shadak had told me that Sharmini Curry had left ICD as the director, which, get rid of her from IMF. I could understand that's what they need to do, but that she would have gone back to African, that was really strange, because she told me that she had. So I was like, is this one of Jennifer Shadak's games? I mean, I was warned by Sandrine Alban-Wecker from the very beginning about Jennifer Shadak. I had that lady's number from the very beginning. And she's the typical, civil servant that just adores to give somebody false information. So they run around with a chicken their head cut off and do something that makes them look stupid. And then, isn't this funny? Isn't this funny? Believe me, I remember the first time I heard about that, game was, it was in Spain. And, my ex-husband's family, because two of the grandfathers had been on the losing side of the Spanish Civil War, one an anarchist, the other a communist. They had to flee, and they ended up in Morocco. But then, of course, you had a lot of, you had others who fled to France, but then you also had, the other parts of the family in Spain. I mean, some of them were the one cousin was Guardia Civil under Franco. So, a typical story in Spain. You had families on both sides. My ex-husband's family was very, very, very poor, extremely poor. I mean, that's where you see again, these revolutionaries. Even the communist grandfather, who died when he was in the mid-50s or so, he had diabetes, so it was perhaps complications or something. But the other was, God, you talk. That was the anarchist. You see that they just want, they're just narcissistic, psychopathical coot. They just want everything for themselves, and violent. And so one of the stories was that they, two brothers or cousins or whatever in the family had been invited to some wealthy person. Wealthy person meant that they had food for lunch. People would sometimes, when people were hungry, would, give them some food and offer them a meal. And so one of the brothers stole an orange or something and then put it in the brother's pocket without telling him, and then they're leaving, and he says, "Oh my goodness, look," and he pulls out of the pocket the orange, maybe an apple, and he said, "Look what my brother stole from you. You were so nice to invite us over for lunch, and look what he stole from you." And I mean, this was a joke in the family. And everything was always, the dynamics was always trying to set other people up to make them look like idiots so you could laugh at them and everybody could laugh at them. And it's, how many people in that family that it has destroyed. I mean, my my family dynamics is the same. I mean, but at least, in my family, we're not sticking around for this. I mean, unfortunately, my siblings just went down the same road as my mother. Going to be their demise, just like all of you all. I mean, this is why I know how this ends. I mean, you all are just following the lead of all of the Foxcroft girls and all of the preppies. This is not just the Ivy League school, it's also the prep schools where all your kids are going now. Woodbury Forest, in Sidwell Friends, that's where I'm pretty sure Obama's daughters went. Taxpayers are paying a hell of a lot of money for all of you narcissists, entitled narcissists who are screwing up the world, for your kids to go to really expensive schools. That is another, part of managerialism and just big bucks. I mean, now we're seeing, in Hollywood, some of these parents being arrested for trying to get their kids into this school or that school. And I mean, the market's flooded with PhDs and MBAs. I mean, you can't, unless you have at least 1, 2, 3. I mean, I've done dissertation work on about 12 in the past 15 years. But, since I didn't pay some university for the courses, it doesn't count. I mean, I was always smarter than really, I would say, just about all of my professors. I mean, the most dramatic, I guess, case in that was Dr. Robert Dunn of GW. And you guys are playing the same game with me that he did. I mean, this was international econ. I had been told, I'll tell this story I don't know how many times, I had been told to drop the course because it was so difficult. Even the econ majors failed it at least once. I'd love to know what Harvey Eisenberg got on that class when he went to GW. He's the one who told me international econ is easy. It's just common sense, and he was right. But I got a 98 on the midterm. I turned around and taught explained it to my classmates. The first thing I did when I went into the tutorial, I gave them all of my notes for the semester, and I said, he's making this out to be a hell of a lot more complicated than it is. It's not rocket science. This was literally the easiest class I ever took in my life. First 15 minutes, 20 minutes of his lecture, the notes, then I'd kind of listen and rest my eyes as I was working night and day to pay for school. Exhausted. My mom was trying to, destroy me. My older sister by this time had fled the United States from my mother's, incessant. I mean, my poor father. You talk about battle fatigue. I mean, all of you men, just like all of the women, you could too become, marry an abusive husband. Not just Spaniard control freak, but definitely nobody that ever, I was ever afraid of. They give me attitude, I give it back. And, as I explained to one young girl who was working at Kalari for a while, who had a, macho, controlling fiance, and she was having problems, and I said, look, pick your battles. Do you really care if you serve chicken, fish, or meat for a dinner party, or for dinner, or whatever? I mean, you can make it, And, if he wants to serve entrecôte, steak for $20, you just tell him that it's going to cost him $3,000 and 5 people in the kitchen, and they'll shut up right away. But when it comes to the important issues, there you put your foot down. Usually it'll be about your kids, or money for security, financial security for the family. Those two issues, you put your foot down, and you use the brain power of women. See, yes, in many ways, women are babbling idiots. I've always preferred the discourse of men in terms of any kind of academic or that type of theological issues. With God, women, yes, I have to agree with Plato. But I'm not going to drink the Kool-Aid like Plato, and that I don't agree with him. When it comes to arguing and getting their way, when they have their mind set on something that they want, and they're not going to let anybody, deter them from that. Now, that can be used in a good way, and it can be used in a very, 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 very bad way, as I've seen with my family and a lot of people I know. But in a good way, you can just waltz into a room like Kamala Harris did in the Saturday Night Live skit of the 2020 debate, Trump-Biden, and said, "This is enough. Now, you apologize. And when you all are finished with whatever you're doing here, there's some peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and some apple slices out there. And what was it, Chris Wallace? I'll see you in my office afterwards." And then she finishes and goes, "Now, where's my martini?" See, sometimes it just takes a woman who knows how to waltz into any situation, take charge, and say, "I'm not going to listen to any more of your stupidity, your squabbling, your bitchery, your BS. Everybody's going to apologize to everybody, and you're going to get back to work, or you're going to go and sit for a timeout." And timeout here is our prisons. We got to empty the prisons of the new Jim Crow to make space for all of the bureaucrats who have created this mess. And the bankers, and the business people, and the capital venturists, and the press, and, the list goes on and on. But believe me, if that is not done, there will be bloodbaths. And the United States is descending into a civil war for the same reason as our first Civil War. And I wish everybody would stop saying that that was to liberate the black African American slaves. It was not. Every war has given some noble, objective to the Crusades for the Catholics. I mean, that has been. I always tell people, particularly the Europeans, about the Iraq War. Oh, that was just for money. I'm just like, you people, give me the name of one war in this world that was ever fought for anything but economic gain. Noble causes, and everybody it gives a noble cause, but even with the American Revolution, John Dickinson was right. And since the American Revolution, we've just continued with war after war after war. Now, does this mean we go back to being British, British colonies, send the black Africans back, send the Latinos back, rewind the clock? Well, no. in this, case, situation is what it is. And this country was built by the hard work of everybody, not just the black slaves. I mean, the early Puritans who came, they didn't have slaves up in the North. In fact, I have a book called Puritan on Puritan. The early Puritans in the United States, and it even, explains that one of the reasons why you had the slavery that developed in the Virginia and the Carolinas and that area was the difference in climate and temperature. You had the plantation, you had the tobacco, another drug. We were, tobacco, sugar cane, sugar. I mean, all of these were drugs, and are drugs that are doing great damage. But that drug's okay, and the damage is doing that's okay. I mean, the world needs to catch up with itself in terms of having a noggin and, stop being... have the wool pull over your eyes by cacophony of a bunch of people who want to get rich and get on a podium or in front of a TV or the one speech I did, Battered Mothers Custody Conference. I mean, anytime I have to publicly speak, I'm usually in the bathroom throwing up. Or trying not to throw up before I have to do that. And my blood pressure shot down so far, I was afraid I wasn't even going to be able to do it. I had to get some Coke, do a Coca-Cola. I mean, okay, I was so nervous the night before, I even had the cigarette. And that just, I don't know, my body's gotten a little bit used to it now, but... that was a stupid thing to do, I admit. Stupid. I'm even smoking now. I don't know. It's the lithium. People have me so... I would love for any of you to come and try and live with this. Yesterday, I'm trying to clean. Oh, God, the woman upstairs... disgusting. I mean, I'm almost vomiting with all the odor from the cat. Oh. As I said, I mean, I don't go upstairs, but I said to this one gentleman, I said, look, I have lived in too many places and seen too many people who live in squalor because they have to, because they have no choice because of the poverty. So I have very little patience and very little sympathy for people who do it voluntarily. And everybody in this place, the landlord, you're a typical narcissist, con artist, and he was a court-appointed lawyer, and he just loves to surround himself. He has Munchausen by proxy. See, this is the problem with the narcissist and the psychopaths, is they have no abilities to confront any problems, daily problems, and this is why nobody confronts anything within the international development community, within the NGOs, the think tanks. Christine Lagarde even said in one speech that you have to wait until you're in crisis mode before anybody reacts, because they don't want to get involved. They don't get involved until, of course, they have no other option, and it's comes, shit hits the fan, and it goes flying in their face. I mean, you gotta start prevention instead of crisis management, until you destroy the planet. So, I also wanted to read this one with the workplace bullying, bullying in the workplace and its consequences. Because this I had written in September 2009. Now this was, 9 months after I had returned to Washington, D.C. I came back here, oh no, wait a second. Yeah. Because 2008 he was in, and then Obama started in 2009, the beginning of 2009. So this was after I had been working, for about 4 or 5 months at the IMF Family Association, and had gone through already the landlord. First month that I was here up near the Armory, that's in my landlord-tenant violations videos. Since nobody will read, I'm starting to do videos, but maybe you'll listen. Although I lost hope many years ago, but at least here it's for posterity. Nobody can say that they weren't informed. Nobody can say that they didn't know. Nobody can say that they didn't understand. I've explained it and explained it and explained it till I'm blue in the face. You want to play hardball? I mean, this is the thing. You guys want to get into positions of power, and you want to play with the big boys and hardball, and we're as tough as the men, and even better. I mean, I love that photo of Christine Lagarde and all of them. The women over at the IMF. We're the power ladies now. Well, power ladies. You can also have meetings in your little prison. I mean, you want to play hardball. You want to play with the big boys. Well, you better be ready to take the heat when it comes. So, I mean, I parallel the vicious, viperous people. And this was in 2009. It's just gotten worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse as my research progresses, as my activism progresses, as I speak out more and more and more. The bullying here, this landlord is no different than like my sister or my cousins or any of the feminists who don't want me rocking the boat of the little game that they're cashing in on. And I mean, that's the same with everybody at the IMF, World Bank, UN, NGOs, everybody who's ostracizing me from the workforce. I mean, it's the same with it's the same with the restaurants where I'm working. One of the things I couldn't believe was when Rita of Kalari Taverna, Juan Williams came in, and he kept on calling me over to the table, and with questions like, is the ring on your left finger a wedding ring? They say, you get the picture. I didn't come to DC for that. I'm not interested, whatever. You keep on saying, when his wife finds out about that one, she's not going to be happy. And quite frankly, you know what? All of you men, I hope your wives find out about the stuff that's going on. I mean, Aunt Sinclair, when she was like, oh, I heard rumors. Well, when I hear rumors, I want to know what's going on. Instead of sticking my head in the sand. Because, see, just like with Aunt Sinclair and Dominique Strauss-Kahn, it all blew up in their face. I mean, at least, with my ex-husband, I was always, okay, well, I remember when he called me the day he was out, his duties were taken away from him, and it took them 8 months to figure out what he had built. And the second he called me, I could tell. I was at the grocery store And I just left everything, and I said, James, we gotta go. And James, you know, to his credit as well, he didn't ask me a word. We just went and picked him up. But I knew just from the voice, and I knew from experience, you know, I spent my entire life, entire marriage, saying to my ex-husband, don't do it. Don't do it. It's going to get us into trouble. And then I will always be left holding the bag. And he would do it on my back. And guess who would have to clean it up? See? I've spent my life doing that. You guys are old hat. With my mom and my parents. Oh, that's another story. See, my ex-husband always used that as proof that I was the crazy one. I was like, excuse me. If I see through all of it and everything like that, is Lucy Herman, this director of public policy lab at Stanford Law, I once said to her, you know, back in, this was in D.C. in the 80s, she was working at Dennis Dickinson's office, and I said to her, how do we grow up? And how do we live in this world of total chaos, of total craziness, and still remain relatively sane? And she said, because you realize it is craziness. Well, unfortunately, she drank the Kool-Aid. I never drank the Kool-Aid. I was a little princess in a pea, I guess. I didn't know what was wrong in Washington in the 80s and with my entourage. And, I mean, I was a kid. You know, how can you expect the kids to understand all that? They got to become an old lady for that. See, that's why old ladies are not useless in the marketplace. But I knew something was wrong. And this lady figured out what it is after all of these years of globetrotting while you guys are grappling up your ladder of your success. Which, when the house of cards comes tumbling down, so do you. So you've been telling me that I made my bed and lie, so I should lie in it for the past 15 plus years. Well, when the shoe's on the other foot, I promise you a little bit more compassionate than all of you people. So, abuse and torture go far beyond broken bones. It breaks the heart and spirit and is so designed. This September 9th, 2009. In 2001, I attended the inauguration of the Spanish version of Ingrid Betancourt's book, La Rage au Coeur, in Bogota, Colombia, and her ensuing presidential campaign speeches. While I was impressed with her convictions, enthusiasm, and desire for peace and change for her country, I felt that she could never achieve in Colombia what is unattainable in the United States and Europe. I followed her 6 years of captivity in the Colombian, Spanish, French, and American press closely, and admired Astrid and her family's never-ending persistence to liberate Ingrid. I know enough about the dynamics and political backdrop of her liberation to know that without the efforts of Ingrid's family, she and those freed with her would have been left to die in the jungles of Colombia by the important people of this world. So when I refer to this, the dynamics, see one of the things, so Astrid had been the French ambassador to Bogota, Daniel Parfait's mistress. That was when, you know, Ingrid, it was the same time that Ingrid was presenting her presidential campaign. That was also when I was the incoming president of Bogota. I mean, all of the Spanish women, the French women on the board with me. First, they were vicious, absolutely vicious, to Nicole Parfait, Danielle Parfait's wife, because she had some health issues. I'm not really sure. There have been some rumors, but I'm not really sure. But had some health issues, and was why she didn't come with Daniel Parfait to Bogota when he first, arrived. And so that, I think, would have been like 2001 or so. And so it was the Damas Diplomáticas who were doing their bazaar. So they had asked the board of Bogota Cay if we could do the cake bake or whatever, they wanted from our participation. Or I think what the Damas Diplomáticas, you would import things from France, and then they had stands from all over the world, bazaar, and selling the different things from and the advantage of all of this is that the embassies bring it in tax-free, and tax on all of that stuff was very, very high, so the prices locally were very high. I mean, okay, that was usually just the expats or the foreigners or the ruling elite in Bogota who really had the money to buy that stuff. But, it was expensive, and so usually all of the expats and lots of people from Colombia would go to the bazaars and buy those products. But this started back 50s, 60s, whatever, whenever, depending on each country or so. But over the years, I saw, or from the time that my sister was there when she arrived there, so she's been there 30 years. Yeah, when she first got there, all you could get was iceberg lettuce. It was the only choice of lettuce, and over the years, and those import taxes have gone, the tariffs have come down a bit, so it was becoming less. Carrefour really helped as well. They brought in a lot of stuff. So these bazaars were not as interesting for all of the expats to go to, because the prices really weren't that, much cheaper. And so they always had a growing problem of getting people to participate, and that's when I had gotten involved in a project with Cindy Pereira and to join all of the different expat groups and try and coordinate things, and that's also how I had the idea for Global Expats. But the Bogota Cay board was like, no, if she can't be here to handle all of that, then we're not going to do it. I was horrified. I was like, ladies, she's not the Saint-Tropez on vacation. She has health problems. Little compassion here. So I don't know. I think I offered to do something myself, and it kind of fizzled out, whatever, but I was horrified. I was disgusted. And this was the board that I was going to be coming into. Brigitte, the Carrefour, president of Carrefour's wife, got a little taste of those viperous bitches as well. But they were scandalized, oh my lord, with Astrid, affair with Daniel Parfait. And I said, look, you guys, I don't know what's going on there. It's none of my business. It's not anybody's business but theirs. He'll show up with Astrid. He shows up with his wife. There's never any scenes. It's only very civilized. I mean, obviously, everybody knows what's going on, and it's their business. It's nobody's business but theirs. If they know what's going on, and they're okay, well. Just, the Gladys Kravitz of the world. We got the good Gladys Kravitz who are a watchful eye on the real criminals, and the Gladys Kravitz who just want to go around and create, havoc and discord and gossip and believe me, the expat wives clubs, oh, how they are filled. So, However, it was upon reading the passage, and this is when I'm working at IMF Family Association. However, it was upon my reading the following passage in her book, Letter to My Mother, that was published during her captivity, that I thought to myself, this is exactly the torment and fear that I have lived for the past 3 years, and that all too many women and children around the world live for an entire lifetime. And no one really cares, as I have learned the hard way. This is where the true battle lies for peace and democracies, not in political campaigns and politically correct rhetoric. I owe an enormous amount of gratitude to Ingrid and Astrid. At the end of 2007, I realized that my children would end up under the custody of their emotionally unstable father, and his family's influence and mercy. In my desperation, I contacted every association whose mission it is to help women in my situation, and anyone and everyone I have known during my lifetime who have any kind of power asking for the assistance, including my mother. You see, with the Amanda Knox case, I mean, her parents, and they were divorced, but both of them took out second mortgages. I mean, I sent an email to Amanda Knox when she got back to the States many, many years ago. I said, you should be suing the State Department. You and your family should be suing the State Department, because they should have been, no way, the second that our citizen no longer becomes a witness and becomes a suspect, you have to notify us, you have to notify her, you have to notify us, and you have to notify her of her rights. And she has the right to consular consultation, and the consulate should have been on top of that every moment. That was horrific. That judge is freaking crazy. There's even a book. A guy was expelled from Italy because he wrote a book about this judge, and what satanic. Oh God, this man needs to go to a psychiatric ward. And he almost got Amanda Knox locked up for the rest of her life. I mean, governments have to be held responsible for the crazy people that they're putting in their agencies. This is human resource management. And everybody's got to start assuming responsibility. Well, they made the American Bar Association. I want to see them in court. And all of the bar associations. In the American Bar Association in 1970 published a report that 70% of lawyers were incompetent. And what have the law schools done? Flood the markets with, incompetent lawyers. The bar associations give them a free pass of all the corruption and the criminal activity with their 3 to 4% sanction rates. And they're stupid. Again, lots and lots of meetings and parties and initiatives. And Anne Marie Slaughter was head of, I think it was the International Bar Association or something. Oh, that woman. I want to see her in court. Everywhere she goes, it's a BS propaganda thing. Oh, she got, the Atlantic. They brought her into stardom. Anybody who will, just parrot what all of the status quo and the Koch brothers and the Clinton dynasty, which is being followed by the Obama dynasty. So, at the end of 2007, I realized that my children end up under the custody of their emotionally unstable father and his family's influence and mercy. In my desperation, I have to, the only one who provided me any assistance was Astrid Betancourt. She sent me a letter. But I ain't getting help from the consulate. That's what I was trying to get. The amount of people who provided me with empty rhetoric, the French consulate. The amount of people who provided me with empty rhetoric and promises, ignored me, or slammed the proverbial door in my face was amazing. The apathy and indifference of people over the life of a woman and her children, stunned and disillusioned me more than I had ever been in my entire life. And it's precisely why what happened to me and my children, occurring every day, everywhere. Additionally, for the first time in my life, I was presented with a problem that I did not know how to handle or confront, and had no one to turn to for advice. It was in rereading Ingrid's book, La Rage au Cœur, that she gave me the advice and answer that I needed. I will be indebted to these two women. Not only did they assist me in a practical way, but they have given me the strength to continue fighting day after day by observing the courage and force that they have shown in the face of horrifying challenges and adversities. I have compassion for what Ingrid went through, but obviously Ingrid doesn't have any compassion, or Astrid doesn't have any compassion for anything that I've been through. This is, typical, and both of them are second generation international development community. Their father worked for UNESCO. Shows you how it goes from one generation to another. After 6 years of living in Colombia with security concerns of my own children and family, witnessing kidnappings, homicide, and terrorist attacks, I can appreciate the emotional strain that Ingrid's captivity was for the entire family. The entire world would do well to look to these two women, their mother and their children and family, to see where true values lay, whether it be of a family or a nation. But see, once Ingrid got liberated, that's all anybody cared about. I'm good. I don't care about how everybody else is. True values, morals, and integrity are not to be found on a slip of paper, whether they be on marriage certificates, birth certificates, constitutions, declarations of rights, or legal codes, but rather through love, honor, and dignity. And I have observed Ingrid and Astrid demonstrate all of these on various occasions over many years. Unfortunately, not the interim years since 2009. Letter to My Mother by Ingrid Betancourt. This is a very dense jungle where sunlight scarcely ever penetrates, and it is barren of affection, sympathy, or tenderness. They separated me from the people with whom I had a good rapport and affection, and put me in with a very difficult group. Particularly separated me from my children. That's my other than that, I've been pretty much on my own all my life. My children are my family. I am tired, mamita. Tired of suffering. I have been or tried to be strong. These nearly 6 years of captivity have proven that I am not as resistant, not as brave, not as intelligent, not as strong as I thought. I have put up many battles, have tried to escape several times, have tried to keep up hope like one keeps one's head above water. But mamita, darling, I give up. I would like to think that one day I would get out of here, but I realize that what happened to the congressman, which affected me so deeply, could happen to me at any moment. I believe it would be a relief for everyone. I keep thinking that at last I am going to cry no more, that it is all now healed over, but the pain starts up again and attacks me like a vicious dog, and I again feel my heart breaking into pieces. I am tired of suffering, of bearing it all inside me all the time, of lying to myself, of believing that this will soon end, and finding that every new day is the same hell as the one before. I think of my children. We have gone through so much together, have lived our lives so intensely, that terra firma seems to have disappeared in the distance. They are the same, and yet they have changed. And with every second of absence of my inability to be there for them, to assuage their pain, to be able to advise them or give them strength and patience and humility in the face of life's blows, all the lost opportunities to be their mama, poison these moments of infinite loneliness for me, as if I was given an intravenous injection of cyanide. Mamita, darling, this is a very difficult moment for me. They demand a proof of life, and here I am pouring my heart out to you on this sheet of paper. I am poor physical condition, I haven't been eating. My appetite has shut down. My hair is falling out in clumps. I have no desire for anything. And I think the latter is the only thing that is right, having no desire for anything. Because here in this jungle, the only answer to everything is no. It is better not to want anything so as to be free, at least, of desires. I would like to ask you, Mamita darling, to tell the children that I want to send me 3 messages a week on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Ask them to send you a couple of lines to your email address so they can read them to me. Nothing world-shaking, just whatever they can think to write of, such as, Mamita, today is a marvelous day. Or I'm having lunch with Maria. I love her so very much, and I know you're going to be pleased with her. Or I am exhausted, but I learned a lot today in class about new filming techniques that I'm excited about. I don't need anything more, but I do need to be in contact with them. In fact, every day I wait anxiously to see if you are going to mention them or if you talk with them. That is what makes me happy. The only thing I care about knowing, the only vital, significant, indispensable information. All the rest doesn't matter to me. Well, as I was telling you, life here is no life. It is a gruesome waste of time. I live or survive in a hammock strung between 2 poles, covered with mosquito netting and a canvas that acts as a roof, which to keep my belongings. That is to say, the knapsack with my clothes and a Bible, my only luxury. Everything is prepared for leaving on the run. Here nothing is one's own. Nothing lasts. Uncertainty and precariousness are the only constant. I mean, okay, yes, I have running water. I have a bed. But, it's not, believe me, I went through, traipsing through the jungles of Colombia for one day and with a tourist and the rain coming down, and never was I so glad to get back to the hotel in Leticia and take a shower. So I have a little taste, a little tiny taste of what she lived for 7 years, and I have enough empathy for other people that can imagine what that would be like. Not just one little afternoon, where I go back and can take a shower. Every day, less and less of myself remains. Everything is hard. That's the reality. It is important that I dedicate these lines to those who are my oxygen, my life to those who keep my head above water, who do not let me drown into oblivion, emptiness, and despair. They are you, my children. Tell them that they have never been ceased to be my source of joy in this harsh captivity. Everything here has 2 sides. Joy comes with pain. Happiness is sad. Love cures and opens new wounds. To remember is to live and to die anew. I was telling you that for years I was unable to think of the children because of the dreadful pain it caused me not being with them. Now I can hear them and feel them more joy than pain. I seek them in my remembrances and sustain myself with the images I keep in my memory of the ages of each. I sing happy birthday to them on every birthday. I celebrate their birthdays in my heart. And if I were to die today, I would go satisfied with life, thanking God for my children. For a long time, we have been the lepers that mar the ball. We captives are not a politically correct topic. We must think of where we come from, who we are, and where we want to go. I aspire to having that thirst for greatness one day that makes people rise up from nothingness to the sun. When we are unconditional vis-a-vis the defense of the life and liberty of our own. That is, when we are less individualistic and more committed to the common good. Less indifferent and more involved. Less intolerant and more compassionate. Then at that time, we will be the great nation world that all of us would like to be. That greatness is there asleep in our hearts, but our hearts have hardened and weigh so heavily that no elevated sentiment are permitted. The war waged against the freedom of a handful of forgotten ones are like a hurricane seeking to bring down everything. It is of no interest. His intelligence, his nobility, and his devotion have given pause to many, and here, more than the freedom of some poor crackpots chained up in the jungle, it is matter of taking stock of what it means to defend human dignity. Ingrid Betancourt. Until human dignity, honor, and peace exist within our hearts and our homes, it will never exist within our communities, societies, and this world. Again, this was my blog in 2009, September 2009. Once again, another person filled with empty rhetoric. I, in fact, read the book of the American contractors that were in captivity with Ingrid, and it was pretty enlightening. I mean, it's the same thing, the same story you see all of the time. I mean, one of my things with Ingrid, her platform had been, her political platform had been negotiating with the FARC. Well, if she was out there with the FARC for so many years, why did she not, she was always just trying to escape, and, these were evil men, and of course, nobody has the right to do that, but maybe if she had, okay, you didn't get elected, but fulfill the campaign promise, and you would get elected when you came back, and they might have, you might have been able to negotiate, okay, well, a peace, and could have gone another way. And then, what she did to the contractors, I mean, that, when the contractors showed up, she apparently kind of like, well, they might be CIA. I mean, she jeopardized, one of the contractors was really pissed off. He said, she could have gotten a shot with her little narcissistic, and he did not like her at all, and said that she was just a little prima donna. Well, I think in the interim years where she's up in her ivory tower, she gets liberated. She just wants to get back into the game of giving speeches on podiums. I mean, she's seen her with Balthazar Garçon. I mean, the critics of him say also all he cares about is getting up on podiums and giving speeches. And that's just like everybody else. So. Okay, so that finishes up those two blogs, and I'm going to get to the letters as well. I mean, Kalari Taverna, they've reopened, but of course they don't have any clientele, so they're not hiring. They're not taking me back at the moment, even though I went down and I told the new manager, actually I like the man. He's American, he's not Greek, and seems like a good guy. I haven't worked with him, I haven't seen him in action, but let's say first impressions positive. However, I did want to let him know it's nothing against him, and it's not his fault This is the same with Wanda Ortiz when she first came in as the events coordinator or manager or whatever you want to call it. I was like, excuse me, you're bringing somebody down from New York? I mean, I know a lot of people in this town, and, you know, I mean, so much more qualified than her ever. And then, when, I mean, another Occidental, they were doing they were looking for somebody in the office and events coordinator. I walked in. I mean, now I know. I walk in because if it goes through the Craigslist or whatever, the manager's going to see it, not call me. So I walked in, filled out an application, gave it to her, met with, one of these assistant managers. She was like, oh my God, you are perfect. I mean, like, wow, for this job. Of course. Never got an interview. And I did, follow up, and I did eventually get some response, but, BS. The Occidental, and a lawsuit for age, gender, and nationality discrimination. But I can't find any lawyer since I'm the rich, white, deposed trophy wife that everybody wants to use as the scapegoat as the parasite on society to detract attention away from all of your parasitic trophy wives who sit around in this town doing nothing but shopping and hanging out at country clubs and gossiping and viciously backstabbing people, just like Anne Beatrix Keller. I mean, I was clear to her. Everybody wants to protect Anne Beatrix Keller. Oh, when she pulled the crap with me on the IMF Family Association, I mean, what my mom has done all of these years is vicious. What my sister, well, both my sisters, my younger sister, she called the gloat recently, to hopefully, like, has he started eviction proceedings? Have he started eviction proceedings? I was like, what was the end game here with all the crap that you pulled, or they pulled with the memorial recording? Long story, I had to re-record. It got cut in the middle, and we had to re-record some of this stuff for, an album, a video album. And I got left with the booby prize, and my older sister got jealous and was determined to destroy that because she had wanted to be the star. And unfortunately, how things worked out, this didn't make her into the star, so she was going to show me, and she was going to destroy me. So they 1 week turned into 3 weeks. Well, in the meantime, I'm running against the clock here with the landlord who's trying to evict me. They know, they don't care. They don't care. I'm like, you guys, you guys are my brother. I mean, that's the most incredible part. 9 to 5 job. All he does is, 9 to 5 job, go golfing. I mean, it's just like Trump, or out with his buddies. And I gave him 1 week. I told them very specifically at the beginning, you have 1 week to get in your request to me. No extensions on the deadline. I mean, sure, I'm not, okay, you get it in the next day or so, but not 3 weeks. And then threatened to beat me up, to come down here and beat me up if I didn't obey and start running around and redoing everything. I mean, I was just like, no, you all have gone too far. I shut up for years and years, and the way Dad ended his life, all because you guys want to play these power games and feed your adrenaline highs in being able to control and manipulate others. There's just some things that go overboard. So anyway, those are the bullying in the workplace and its consequences, and abuse and torture go beyond broken bones. It breaks the heart and spirit and is so designed. And the only thing that keeps me going, just like Ingrid, you know, my ex-husband told me, he promised me I would commit suicide, that I would never find a job, that I would have to prostitute myself in order to survive, and that I would end up committing suicide. But, you know, as much as everybody tries and wants to do that, it's not happening. You know, so, all you guys can keep on, you know, with your insults, your screaming, yelling, threats, and I'm just waiting for this one guy, the cokehead, well, former coke heroin addict. I mean, he got COVID. I mean, they're all telling how they don't care about life; they just want to die. See, this is the result of the paradigm that you all are you know, promoting. I mean, this is both of these men. They're 3-year-olds. If they don't get what they want when they want it, you know, they start screaming and yelling and throwing a tizzy fit, just like a 3-year-old. My mom did that all the time. That's what my sister was doing. I hadn't seen it with my older sister. She'd always kept that hidden, but she really played her hand in the past couple months. So, it is what it is, you know. As somebody once said, you can pick your friends, but you can't pick your family. Unfortunately, most of the people I've known in this world, my poor son, one time when we moved back from Bogota to Madrid, he said, Mom, I just want one friend in Spain, like I had so many in Colombia, and my heart just went out to him, because I was just like, oh gosh. You have 2, 3 good friends at the end of your life in this cesspool of a world? Oh gosh, you're a lucky person. A really lucky person. You know, everybody's just, they're out to cash in, and it's just, you know, schmoozing-n-cruising, and how can this friendship or how can this network help me and my narcissistic efforts to grapple up the ladder of success. And it's been, you know, I saw it in the 80s. It's just worse and worse and worse and worse. I mean, this town, really, it's no different than Berlin and the rise to power of the Third Reich. And of course that was the objective of the Koch brothers and their friends in building the Fourth Reich. And they've been successful. So, you know, at least I have my conscience clear. When I meet my maker, whether it be in a few weeks, you know, I mean, as my older sister said one time, she said, aren't you afraid that they'll... I mean, that's what cracked me up with all of you people with your security and your police and you're with me. I mean, oh my Lord. I mean, everybody who knows me knows I wouldn't hurt a fly. So I'll give you my piece of my mind. And I'll chew your ear off and you know, rake you over the goals. But yeah, I could never harm anybody. You know, but just like everybody, see, this is the difference between animals and human beings. Sure, I mean, you know, the famous, you know, I want to wring his neck, I want to kill him. I mean, we all, at moments in our lives, are so enraged that, yeah, we you know, we want to kill the person, but we don't, or we want to you know, go, like Biden. And the 2020 elections. But excuse me, if you're up on a podium on a presidential election, you should have enough self-control, particularly that that's what and this is why it's like, come on, people. This is the game. Tack, 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 tack. So you lose it and lose your temper. And then, I was talking to one of the black men, the homeless guys out here. And, it was like, because one black man was saying to the other, oh, don't listen to that white, that bitch who's bitching. And the guy said, no, she's not bitching at me. She's not being rude to me. No, she knows exactly what we're talking about. Yeah, I said, of course. They ba, 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 until you lose it. And then, oh, see, they're crazy, or, whatever, or they're, And, I mean, my younger sister used to make a game. This was a game for my younger sister with my little brother. Literally, she would say, I'm bored, let's go and bug him with her friend. And so he'll chase us around the house and, in fury. And my mother, she would just say, ignore. I mean, my two kids one was, the bugger, and the other always bugging his brother. And I come in, and of course the older one's hitting his younger brother. And when somebody said, "Oh, look at your son, he's so mean," I said, "Look." I would come in and I say, "Oh, okay. Now you don't have the right to hit, okay?" Then I have to explain that biting came in under the same category as hitting. Forgot to mention that one the first time. And then I would turn to the little one and say, and you stop bugging your brother. Because I know he didn't hit you for no reason. But, and one time my eldest said, Mom, why did you have him? And I said, because it's good training for you. You are going to meet people who are going to bug you so much more than that in this world. And you really have to learn how to keep your cool and not hit and not explode. And yeah, I lose my temper sometimes. But for good reason. Particularly in the past 15 years. I mean, if you look, even in the news, they're swearing like fishwives. Because people are getting to the point where, no, you got to call a spade a spade. A shit show is a shit show. It's a swear word, but sometimes there's no other word that fits. And we've gotten to that point. So, Okay, have a nice evening. Bye-bye.